Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So if you're new to this channel, my name is Victory. You're welcome to this channel. So in today's video, I'll be showing you guys I made this alternate pencil dress with gathers at the down. So if you want to see I made this, just keep on watching. It's going to be a very simple tutorial. Let's jump right into it, guys. So guys, we'll be cutting both the front and the back together. So here I have my back piece, which is longer than the front with 2 inches for zip allowance, and the front piece on top. So we're going to go ahead and take our measurements. So the first thing we're going to do is to mark out the length of our dress. So the length of the dress I'm working with is 31 inches because I'm going to add some pleating, some ruffles at the down of this dress. So I'll mark out 31 inches for my dress. So after marking it out, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it, make the line very visible, then cut out my length. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out my measurement. I'm going to mark out my bust point. My bust point is 10 inches, but I'm going to mark out 10.5 inches because after joining and everything at the shoulder is going to fall back to 10 inches. So I'll mark out 10.5. Then for my underbust is 13, so I'll mark out 13.5. So after my underbust, I'll mark out my half length. My half length is 16, so I'll mark out 16.5 inches. So I'm just going to make the lines very clear and straight. So after that, the next thing I did was to mark out my hip line. My hip line is 25, so I marked out 25.5. Then after my hip line, I marked out the length of my dress. Then the next thing I did after that was to go up by 2 inches from my bust point measurement. So I went up by 2 inches from that point. Sorry I couldn't get it on camera, but I went up by 2 inches. So here I have my chest line, my underbust, my chest line, my bust point, my underbust dress, and my so the neckline we'll be working with is 3 inches. So these are the 4 lines going to mark out 3 inches by 3 inches. So just mark out 3 inches by 3 inches, then make your curve like this. Just make your curve for the neckline. That's for the front piece. The front piece is 3 by 3. So the next one we're going to, for the back part, I'll come down by 1 inches for the back part. But before that, I'm going to divide my bust measurements divided by 4. My bust measurement divided by 4 is 8.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark out my 8.5 inches like this. So after marking out my 8.5 inches, I'm going to connect this point to my neckline like this in a slant way. So this is going to give us the halter neck effect, just like this. Connect it to your neckline like this. So as you can see, the neckline is already coming out. So the next thing we're going to do now is to mark out the back neckline. The back neckline will come down by 1 inches, like I said earlier. I'll come down by 1 inches for the back part, just like this. So I'm going to mark out the dart measurement. So for the darts, I'm going to divide my nipple to nipple measurement by 2, which is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So mark out 4 inches on my bust point measurement. I'll mark out the 4 inches. Then I'll mark out that same 4 inches on my underbust and on my half length as well. So I'm just going to make this line very visible. So mark out the 4 inches on my bust point, my underbust, and my half length like this. So I'm going to make a straight line, connect the lines together. So just connect that 4 inches line that we marked together like this. So now the next thing we're going to do is to come down by 1 inches from the underbust. So just come down by 1 inches from your underbust like this and mark it out like this. So the 4 inches that I took for my bust point, my under bust, and my half length, I'm also going to take that same 4 inches, extend it to my hip line as well, just like you see me doing. I'm going to mark out that 4 inches and connect the lines. So after connecting, I'm just going to come down by 1 inches from my underbust. Like I said earlier, I'll come down by 1 inches from my underbust, just like this. Now for my waist measurement, I'm going to come out by ½ inch on both sides, ½ inch like this, ½ inch like that. On the left side and on the right side, I'm going to come out by ½ inch, just like you see me doing, like this. After that, on my hip line, I'm going to come up by 2 inches. On my hip line, I'll come up by 2 inches like this. So just come up by 2 inches and mark out your line. After marking, we're just going to connect the lines together. So I'll just connect from my half length, from my waist measurement to my underbust 1 inches that we came down by. So I'll just connect the lines like this. I'll do the same thing for the down part. Just connect it like so on both sides. Make sure the lines are straight. So this is what we're going to get after connecting. So I'll just go ahead and make this line very clear. Sorry guys, the next thing I did here was to divide my bust measurement divided by 4. I marked it out. Then for my underbust measurement divided by 4, I added my dart allowance to it and marked it out. My half length I divided by 4. I marked it out with my dart allowance. I'm so sorry I couldn't get it on camera. I had issues adding it together. So what I'm doing right now is to connect those lines together like this. So I just connected the lines together. So I divided my bust measurement by 4. I marked it out. Then my underbust divided by 4 plus the dart allowance. Then the waist measurement divided by 4 plus the dart allowance. So I marked everything out. Then I added my seam allowance. That's what I'm adding right now, which is 2 inches for my seam allowance. So guys, this is basically everything I did for this part of the dress. So now I'll go ahead and cut out my neckline. So I'll cut out the neckline. I'll cut out the back neckline first. Then after cutting out the back neckline, I'm going to cut out the armhole area. So I'm just going to cut out the armhole area like this. I'm not going to take it straight to the end. I'm going to make a curve. Just like this. So this I'm going to cut it out. So I just made a curve like that. So I'll cut out the rest part of the dress. I'm just going to follow the lines I marked out like this. So what I'm going to do next is to mark out the darts for my back piece. So for my back, I'm just going to go in again by 4 from that straight line you're seeing right there. So from that part is our zip allowance. So I'm just going by 4 inches. But this time, the difference between the back dart and the front dart is that we're going to extend our line to our chest measurement. So the dart is going to get to the chest line. So just extend it like so to the chest measurement, then to the hip line area. So I'll just go in by ½ inch and half inch on both sides. So I'll connect the lines from the chest line down to the waist measurement. So for the hip line, I'll come up by 1.5 inches. So come up by 1.5 inches like that. Then I'll connect all my lines just like the way we connected them for the front dart. So just mark it like this, then do the same thing for the down part like this. So that's the dart for the back piece. So we're going to sew it in like this. So this is what it's going to look like. So that's it for the back piece. So the next thing we're going to do is to cut out our lining and cut out the neckline for our front piece. So I'm just going to cut out the neckline for our front piece. So now I've turned it with my lining and I've sewn my darts. So I did same thing for both the back piece and the front piece, as you can see. So this is what it's looking like after adding the lining and sewing the darts. So this is what I had. This is what I got. So now the next thing we're going to do is to cut out a black material for the piping of the armhole and the collar for the neckline. So I'm just going to cut a strap from this black lining. Just make it tiny, like 1.5 inches or 1 inch. It's just for this finishing of the armhole area. So I'm just going to cut out this strap like a bias strap. So I'm just going to cut it out. So this is what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to fold it with quarter of an inch on both sides inside. So it's going to be this tiny. So it's looking like a bias tape actually. So I'm going to use to pipe the armhole area like this. I'm just going to use to close it like this all the way to the end, just from the top to the bottom on both sides, on the back piece, on the front piece. So I'll do same thing for the front piece and the back piece as well. So this is what it's looking like after sewing it. So that's what I got. I did same thing for both the front piece and the back piece. So this is the back piece. So that's the back piece, and I've sewn the sides of the back piece. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out the collar. So for that, I measured around my neckline area. So I got 20 inches. So I'm going to mark out my 20 inches. So I measured it around like this on the neckline area. So I measured the two sides of the back and the front neckline. So I got 20 inches. So I'm going to cut out 20 inches by 3. So it's going to be 20 by 3. It will be 20 inches long, then 3 inches wide. So I'll just go ahead and mark it out and cut it out. After marking it out, I'll just go ahead and cut it out like this. So guys, this is what the front piece is looking like. This is the front piece. So as you can see, I've sewn the armhole area with the black bias. So I did same for both sides. So now the next thing we're going to do is to attach our collar to this front piece. So for the collar, I folded it into 2. So it's 3 inches. So I folded the 3 inches into 2. Then I notched the middle to get it. So I notched the middle of this collar So now I'm just going to open it up, open one side, then place the middle to the middle of the neckline as well. So I'm going to place it at the middle like this. So I'm going to use my pin to secure that area like so. So I'm just going to sew it round from the middle to the end. Full. I'll sew the middle to the middle together. So I'll just take this to my machine. So as you can see, I've sewn it. So this is what it's looking like after sewing. So now for the back piece, I'm just going to place the back piece like this, just on top of the front piece, but not so much. So I'm just going to place it like this, just like you see me doing like this. So I'm just going to put it like so, then sew the neckline area to the end. So I'm just going to sew it like this. It's very easy, just place it like this and sew it to the end. So guys, I've done that. So this is what it's looking like after sewing. So as you can see, it's very neat and perfect. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing for the back piece as well. So I'll do the same thing I did for that part on the other part. This is what it's looking like after sewing both sides together. So now I'm just going to use the other part to cover the rough edges of this neck area. So I'm going to use the other part of the collar, the open part of the collar, to cover the rough edges. Just fold it like this, then sew it all the way to the end, just like you see me doing. Just fold yours like this to get a very neat finishing. So after sewing, this is what I got. This is what it's looking like. It's looking very neat. So you see the neck area is looking very neat. Now go ahead and close the sides of the dress with the allowance, with the 2-inch allowance that we added. So I'll just close the sides. Then after that, I'll fix my zip to it. Now go ahead and close the sides down just like this. So that's what it's looking like after sewing the sides and the zip. As you can see, I've added the zip. So now the next thing is to add our ruffles at the down, the pleating at the down. So guys, this is what I'm going to be using for my ruffles, my pleating. So this is like 7 inches wide. So I'm just going to, I folded it into 4 and I'm notching the middle of this like this. So I measured this round, the length of the dress, I measured it round. So I got 32, so I multiplied it by 3. So that's the length of this ruffles. So I measured it round, then I multiplied what I got by 3. So that's how long this ruffles is. So I'm just going to use it, sew it round all the way around. So it was not enough, so I had to cut it into 2. Then I'll make joining at the side like so. So this is the volume I'm going to be pleating on each side. Remember, I notched it into 4, so I'm going to notch this, pleat this volume into each side of the part I notched. So from this point to the other point, then from the other point to the other point. It's very easy. So guys, this is what it's looking like after sewing. I just pleated it with 2 inches round. So that's what I did basically for the pleat. So as you can see, everything is sitting nice and beautiful. So guys, this is the final look for this dress. So this is what is looking like after everything. I'm just going to cut out this thread. So guys, this is it. This is going to be the end of this tutorial. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and like and subscribe. See you guys in my next one. Bye bye.